We are moving on to topic 3, lesson 2, achievements of Egyptian civilization. Your digital notebook, let's look at it. Page 1 are your 5 vocab words. And then page 2 has 1 mastery check question. Page 3 has 1 mastery check question. Page 4 has a mastery check question. Page 5 has no mastery check questions. And page 6 has 2 mastery check questions. Notice there are only 6 pages, so this should only be a 2 video lesson. So let's go ahead and get started.
Lesson 2. Achievements of Egyptian Civilization. Like the Sumerians, the ancient Egyptians were great inventors. In writing, literature, art, architecture, mathematics, and science, the Egyptians made advances that paved the way for later civilizations.
All right, let's go ahead and watch this video. I'm going to make this tab full size, so the video is full size.
The Egyptians used a system of writing that you may have heard of called hieroglyphics. A hieroglyphic is a drawing or symbol that represents a word or a sound. Think of it as a very old school comic strip. Hieroglyphics allowed the Egyptians to share and preserve knowledge. Today's lesson on ancient Egypt would be very different had it not been for hieroglyphics, because much of what we know about ancient Egyptians is from their writing. Egyptians did not use cumbersome wet clay to write on like the Sumerians. Hieroglyphics were drawn on a very early form of paper called papyrus. Papyrus was made from the papyrus reed that grew along the banks of the Nile. One of Egypt's most striking contributions to the world is the pyramids. The origin of these awesome structures is rooted in the civilization's great devotion to hierarchy and religion. Egyptians felt that their deceased rulers deserved more than a traditional burial. Initially, tombs of earlier rulers were underground chambers that contained items they believed the pharaoh might need in the afterlife. But always reaching higher, an architect named Imhotep designed a special tomb for his pharaoh with 6 stone mounds, one on top of the other. This was known as a step pyramid. Later, other architects would refine the design, smoothing the sides to create the triangular pyramid we're familiar with today. Building a pyramid took the labor of thousands of workers who cut and placed the enormous stones by hand. This sounds hard, but is actually even more difficult than you're imagining right now. While the pyramids serve as a great illustration of the Egyptians' unique and adaptable abilities in architecture, science, and math, they're only one example. We've learned much about ancient Egypt through their paintings and sculptures. Sculptures range in scope from colossal gods to normal-sized people and tiny animals. The Egyptians also developed a lunar calendar, by which they would measure time. Their solar calendar of 365 days is proof of their knowledge of astronomy, the study of stars and other objects in the sky. And it doesn't stop there. They made discoveries in chemistry, which created early forms of glass, mortar, and cosmetics. To make the best use of the Nile's water, the ancient Egyptians created complex systems of irrigation to maximize farming. And perhaps most remarkably, the ancient Egyptians had the deepest medical knowledge of their era. From mummification to surgery, they developed an understanding of human anatomy that would lay groundwork for later leaps and bounds in the medical field. How do you think the Egyptians were able to become so innovative and inventive in such an early era?
All right, so we have listened to the video. Now on page 1, let's look at the vocab words. We have hieroglyphic. You've already defined these. You've already done your Frayer. It means symbol that stands for a word, idea, or sound. Papyrus. A writing surface similar to paper named after the papyrus reed that grew along the Nile River in ancient Egypt. Pyramid. Structure with triangular sides. Sculpture. Statue or other freestanding piece of art made of clay, stone, or other materials. And lastly, anatomy. Study of the structure of the body and its organs. Go ahead and pause my video and get these words defined on page 1. If you do not define them, you do lose points on your digital notebook. All right, let's move on to page 2. The very first question is yellow, so that tells us that it is a quiz or mastery check question. So I'm going to hit next to go to our next page in Savas. All right, we have clicked next one time. We are there. This first question, what does a hieroglyphic writing system use instead of alphabetic letters? So that is yellow. You'll find that answer in this yellow circled paragraph. Let's go ahead and listen.
Writing and literature. The ancient Egyptians developed one of the world's first writing systems. Egyptian writing preserved some of the world's oldest records and works of literature. What was hieroglyphic writing? Ancient Egyptians developed early forms of writing by 3200 BCE. At around the same time, Sumerians in Mesopotamia were developing their own system of writing. Scholars aren't sure who developed writing first. They also don't know if one group borrowed the idea of writing from the other, or if each people came up with the idea separately. Egyptian writing used hieroglyphics. A hieroglyphic is a drawing or symbol that represents a word or a sound. Mesopotamian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphics shared some similarities. Both systems of writing used signs that represented sounds, or phonemes, and other signs, logograms, that represented the meanings of words or phrases. Most ancient Egyptians did not know how to write. Scribes, or officials who knew how to write, were valued for their knowledge. With writing, Egyptians could share and preserve knowledge. This ability made its complex civilization and advanced technology possible.
All right, again, the question, what does a hieroglyphic writing system use instead of alphabetic letters? You'll find that answer in this circled yellow paragraph. All right, let's scroll down and look at this image. It's the same image that's in your digital notebook. You don't necessarily even have to look at it in the e-text. Number 2, list the hieroglyphic images you recognize. So as you are looking through all these different images, what do you see? There's no right or wrong answer. Like, obviously, I see an eye. Easy peasy. So what else do you see? So give me at least 2 more other than eye. So I want 3 total. You can use eye, but then you have to have 3. So go ahead and get number 2 now. Lastly, how is writing with symbols different than using an alphabet? So how would this be different? It doesn't give you a right or wrong answer. This is you thinking. How is writing with symbols? So how would writing with hieroglyphics be different than using the alphabet we use today? Go ahead and get me that answer now. All right, let's move on to page 3 of your digital notebook. You have 2 questions. One is a mastery check question. You'll find that answer under here, the importance of papyrus. Let's go ahead and listen now.
The importance of papyrus. Egyptians invented a material very similar to paper. This material is called papyrus and was made from the papyrus reed that grew along the Nile. Our word paper comes from the word papyrus. Scribes wrote in ink on papyrus sheets. This was much easier than pressing letters into wet clay as the Sumerians did. Papyrus sheets were also easier to transport than pieces of clay. Papyrus sheets had another important quality. they could last a very long time in the dry environment of Egypt. Many documents written on papyrus, including medical books, calendars, stories, poems, and prayers, have survived to the present. Wall paintings may show us how Egyptians lived. However, written records give us a fuller sense of what was in their hearts and minds.
All right, again, for what was papyrus used? You'll find that answer in this circled yellow paragraph. Number 5, what is the name of the text that guides souls to their afterlife? You're going to find that in this pink paragraph here under Egyptian literature. Let's go ahead and listen.
Egyptian literature. Ancient Egyptian literature included teachings, stories, poems, religious texts, and histories. Egyptian literature was written on sheets of papyrus, carved on stone monuments, and painted on the coffins of mummies. One famous text, the Book of the Dead, is a guide to the afterlife for dead souls. The Tale of Sinu tells the tale of an Egyptian official. Hearing that the pharaoh has been killed, he flees Egypt out of fear that he will be blamed for the crime. Primary source. My heart staggered, my arms spread out, trembling fell on every limb. I removed myself, leaping to look for a hiding place. From the Tale of Sinu, translated by R.B. Parkinson.
Again, number 5, what is the name of the text that guides souls to their afterlife? You'll find that answer in this pink paragraph.